Welcome to Crimson Engine. My name is 𝙍𝙬𝙄𝙎. Today we are talking sheet metal. We are talking cars. Car shoots are awesome. They are some of my favorite scenes in movies. They're pure cinema, and almost every film has either a chase or a driving scene. And as a DP, if you have a car shot on your reel, it adds production value and gives you a chance to get quite lucrative work. Shooting cars is some of the hardest and most dangerous film work you can do. They're also prohibitively expensive. It's easy to put a GoPro on the side of a car with a suction cap, but to support a real production camera and a decent lens and a remote head, suddenly you're talking about dozens of pounds. And you need a very specialized rig to support that, let alone manipulate it, especially over bumpy terrain or at decent speed. I set myself the challenge to shoot a car commercial for $1,000 or less. I wanted to have all the bells and whistles of the classic Super Bowl car spot, but I wanted to do it all in a single day. This is what I came up with. So I started by looking at other car commercials. I went through dozens of them on YouTube to try and find what are the constituent parts, what shots do all of these have in common, or what are the classic car commercial shots. I divided them down into three types: the car-to-car shot, the drone footage, and the hero shot. Let's take each of these in turn. Car-to-car is when you have the camera mounted on the outside of one car, which we'll call the camera car, and you're shooting at the other car called the hero car. Now, these cars move in relation to one another, so you can't have a locked off camera. Usually you need to have a camera on the camera car that's able to move and pan and tilt with the action that the hero car is performing. If it's a sports car commercial, this will be dynamic acceleration and cornering. If it's a luxury car commercial, this will be going through exotic locations. There is a professional tool that does this. It is a very powerful car with a giant crane built on top of it that you're able to mount and access from within the car. Now, these cost around 150 grand. And start at about $2,500 a day for just the rig, not including the operator. So that wasn't going to work for us. What I did find was a tool called the 𝙍𝙐𝙬𝙄𝙎. It is a kit that attaches to the front, side, back corner or back of a car with three big industrial quality suction caps and lets you mount a Ronin RS onto a vibration dampening array. You can then sync your Ronin RS with either the app, or in our case we use an Xbox controller to manipulate the camera within the car. You can't swing it 360 around the car like you can with the much more expensive crane, but since we're only going for a couple seconds per shot, we thought this would really work. The 𝙍𝙐𝙬𝙄𝙎 is around $1,400 retail, and you can rent them for like under $50 for a day. The payload is only 16 pounds, so I decided to use the R5 shooting 8K RAW and the Sigma Art Series stills lenses to save on weight rather than my C500 Mark II and Sigma Cine primes. I was also somewhat apprehensive that the 𝙍𝙐𝙬𝙄𝙎 would stay stuck to the car, so if it did come off, I wanted to risk $5,000 worth of camera equipment instead of $25,000. We sync the Ronin RS to an Xbox controller through the Ronin app, which worked flawlessly, and we were able to get really good control of the camera from inside the car. I have to admit, I had my reservations whether or not this would work, but when we saw the first takes and we were able to test it, I was blown away. I was super impressed how smooth the footage was, how we're able to get it really low to the ground or up high to get a 3/4 down shot. Now, Tilta didn't send me the rig, or they're not sponsoring this video, but I have to say that for $1,400, this is a pretty amazing piece of equipment. There's no more excuses for opening the trunk of your car and hanging out with your camera. So shooting car-to-car is really like filming any other scene, except the whole setup is moving at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour on the road. You're essentially using your camera car as a giant dolly to move backwards and forwards in relation to the hero car, and communication is really important. I used my Holyland comms units, which actually I've never used in this way before. It came in super handy to have instantaneous communication between the driver of the car, the operator of the camera, and the driver of the hero car. Later that day, when they'd run out of batteries, we used the hands-free cell phone reception between both cars, and it wasn't nearly as good. Really shows that communication is everything. Thank you to 𝙁for sponsoring this video. 𝙁 is a new type of car insurance company that measures how you drive and gives a great primary rate to safe drivers. If you're a good driver, you could save hundreds of dollars. Download the 𝙁 app and take it for a drive to see how much you could save. So after we got a front shot, a side shot, and a rear-facing shot with the 𝙍𝙬�58, we moved on to drone shots. We met the drone operator on the sandbar here in Colchester, which is this beautiful strip of road that goes between the mainland and South Hero Island. I wanted to shoot it later in the day, so we weren't totally front lit by the sun, so we waited till about 5 o'clock, which also happens to be peak hour in Vermont, and there were a lot of cars coming to and from the islands. It took us quite a long while, maybe about an hour, to get the right shots where there wasn't bumper-to-bumper traffic and we could actually get up to speed. Once we got our shot, we had to pull over to the side of the road, get the drone, and then drive for another mile to turn around and come back in the other direction. So it was slow going, but I got all the shots that I wanted from the drone. Camera, the drone operator, was awesome and was able to track and keep everything in focus and get the movement I want. I basically wanted the drone following the car, the drone panning beside the car, and the drone orbiting around the car, and we were able to get all of those, but not at the speed that would have been ideal because we wanted to stay under the speed limit and because of all the traffic. So instead we just sped up the footage. Nobody wants to see a sports car commercial where you never get out of first gear. And because of the range of the drone drone operator was in the front seat of the car and I was in the very small back seat of the BRZ that we used. And it is a strange sensation to be filming yourself from a third-person perspective, but I was happy with the footage that we got. Now, the final thing to capture was the hero shot. So we got some small details of the car, some interiors, and then the light was getting just right for the sun to be setting behind the car with this nice picturesque background of the Lake Champlain, and we did these slow push-ins. Now, the reason that this particular shot pops so much is that I traced it in Resolve, tracked it over the life of the shot, and then graded the car separately from the background, added, sharpness to the car and made the background more out of focus, changed the color temperatures, changed mid-tone detail, and a whole bunch of other little tricks that car commercials use. Now, if this was a big budget car commercial, I would have gone through and done this to every single shot. That's how they get that wonderful separation, and that's why the car always stands out so much from the background. I'm happy to report that even with my 3-year-old iMac, I was able to track shots pretty easily, and it's not as time intensive as it once was to do this kind of intensive grading. Bigger commercials even grade individual elements of the car differently, so they'll make the windscreen bluer and they'll make the panels warmer. The only limitation for this type of color grading is how much time and attention to detail you have. And that was the final spot. If you want to know more about this process, I have a more detailed 40-minute tutorial at canonmasterclass.com that you can check out as part of the Scene Blueprint series. All the gear I used is available in the description. Thank you again to 𝙁 Insurance, our sponsor. You can find them in the description as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.